What most do not understand is how the Israeli electoral system works. Unlike the United States, where you go and you vote directly for your congressman or woman, you vote directly for your U.S. senator. In Israel, you do not vote for any such person, and therefore anybody is not accountable for their actions. Instead, you, the voter, vote for a party list. It is the party that draws up a list and says, Joel, you're number one on the list. Sam, you're number two. Yossi, you're number 25. Now, if we get enough votes to warrant 25 seats, then Yossi, you'll be included. But if we only get 10, well, too bad, Yossi, you're not. Meanwhile, Joel and Sam are in the Knesset, but they're not accountable to the voters. They're only accountable to the party, and the party wants them there. So you elect a party list, and as Yoni indicated at the beginning of the hour, the problem is you can, and he's predicting this, you can win the second largest number of seats and still end up being prime minister. How is that so? The fact of the matter is that you can sometimes have as many as 30 parties running, and depending how many meet the threshold, which means they have to get over 3.5% of the voters voting for their list, if you pass the threshold, then your party is in the Knesset. But no party has ever had a majority of 61 or higher. It is a 120-member parliament. And therefore, once the election is over, we now play the Israeli version of Monty Hall's famous game show, Let's Make a Deal, which means the top party, maybe they got 30 seats, but they need to get 61. Start going to other parties and say, join my coalition. If you join my coalition, I'll give you the defense ministry as a job. I'll give you the educational ministry as a job. I will make promises. If you join my coalition religious party, we will not have El Al flights on the Sabbath. And so you cobble together a government. Are you still listening? He also asked, how could the Israeli voters vote for the leftist, progressive, quote-unquote, agenda in Israel? And the answer is, the first part was, well, when you're voting for a party list, and then one of these ministers, and many have, ended up on corruption charges and various other charges, you can't even say, I'm a citizen, I want to bring up a motion of impeachment, let's remove this guy from office. Can't do it. He's there. And so all these politicians, they get wedded to their jobs, their office, their secretary, their limousines, and they'll do anything to stay in power. Now, this will include, of course, well, if we can't win under that label, let's adopt a new label. And Yoni hinted at that when he talked to the listeners at the beginning of the program. The left now in Israel calls themselves the Zionist group. Now that is really almost a desecration of the word Zionist, because this is the same group that is ready to redivide Jerusalem, give away Judea, Samaria, which includes Mount Zion, from which we get the term Zionist. And so they're running under false colors, hoping, well, with a change in name, we'll pick up a few voters who are not really paying attention, and so on and so forth. This is a big danger in democracy. Voter apathy They're not getting the information. They're not making much attempt. They're only basing it on the commercials, slick commercials that bombard the country on TV, slick commercials paid for in many cases by foreign outside groups. That includes the $1.5 million being sent by American supporters, quote unquote. Some say it's funneled actually at the bidding of the Obama administration in the campaign to elect Herzog and Livni and depose Netanyahu. So these things all combine to turn the voters off. But I need to emphasize, and Dr. Martin Sherman, who is the founder and executive director of the Israel Institute for Strategic Studies and had been a guest on our show earlier, he summarized this very well last summer when he wrote in the Jerusalem Post, "Today, Israel's left is ludicrous in terms of its doctrine, loathsome in terms of its conduct, and lethal in terms of its consequences." End of quote. And I think American listeners must remember, if the Israeli left seems so bad and is ready to give up the store at Obama's bidding, how far behind can the American left be? And for this, I think we need to remember the words in the good book, Isaiah 49:17, "Thy destroyers and thy demolishers shall emerge from within thee." The greatest enemies that Israel has is within Israel. The greatest enemies that the United States has is within the United States, because you have uninformed, underinformed, naive, self-delusional people who don't vote because they like a candidate's personality, they like the way he or she looks. They're not doing that dirty 8-lettered word that when you were in school, you cringed whenever the teacher announced, "You have homework." Well, guess what, people? We all have homework. We need to learn to become self-educated and make wiser decisions than we are now.